I see it is live now.
Yeah, y'all. Very good. What's up, everybody? So good to have you all here. My name is MC Till with everybody's hip hop label. You were tuned in to the Boom Bap Chat episode number 4. We have a very special guest, one that I'm really excited about because this dude just keeps on dropping excellent music. We have Awon. Awon, what's happening, man?
Peace, man. Everything is all good. Thanks for
Good.
having me.
Man, of course, man. Of course. Thanks for being here. Before we jump into things, would love to know what's behind that name. How'd you get that name, A1?
Oh, actually, I had some terrible rap names, and my older cousin Jay Swift, who was uh early influence in my life and as far as the music and everything, my first actual producer. He was like, "Look, man, these names are terrible. You're gonna have to do something simple. How about just A1?" And the way that he broke it down was like, just use your initials and try to find something that matches with your real name. And we decided to spell it AW, with my last name, my initials, and then A1. So that's basically it. And it was simple, it stuck, it was perfect. And I guess it was a better representation of me because I like to be the same person that I am in real life as I am on the mic instead of being a character. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I shouts out to my cousin Jay. That was a good lookout because I mean it just stuck. That stuck right there.
Right on. Right on. Before we jump into your music, one of the things that we like to do here at the Boom Bap Chats is talk about some of your favorite albums. So I picked out one album that you said that you really liked, and I would love to know why this album is special to you. What does it mean to you? Can you chat about this right here? Midnight
Yeah,
Marauders by
yeah,
Tribe
yeah.
Called Quest.
So to transition from the low end theory, which was darker than Midnight Marauders, Midnight Marauders had like a vibe, a bounce, and a different swing on the production that was refreshing and a little bit brighter. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the first single, War Two, if I'm correct, if that was the first single that I remember, it was so long ago. I was in junior high school, but I knew when I heard that single, when you hear the key, dun, 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 I knew what time it was right there. And later in life, find out the backstory about Q-Tip's relationship with Weldon Irving, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and how they were basically getting exclusives, like they were getting the archives, like he was like, don't sample that shit, sample this. And I
Yeah.
mean, that guidance made them a classic album. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it was just so much heat on there, and then Electric Relaxation. And I know I'm just talking about the singles, but it's nothing that groove, that vibe would kind of, be the, I guess you could say, the precursor to the swing that we know from Jay Dilla. That
Mm-hmm.
new swing
Yeah.
they brought in that soulful swing, even though it was on a jazzier side, but that new sound, it was really dated to Midnight Marauders. So what we like from the later albums, from like Slum Village and everything, and the Far Side can be rooted and heard
Right.
in it on that album.
Yeah.
So that album was like revolutionary. And the fact that I want to say it dropped the same day as Into the 36 Chambers. The
I
Wu
think I
Tang
think
Clan.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
that was that was like the best day in hip hop in the world.
That was a good day. That was
Yeah,
a very good day. Man,
it was.
it's interesting you bring up Dilla because I remember not too long ago I was in a conversation with someone on social media and they were swearing up and down that Dilla helped produce this album, and I was like, I don't think that's
Ah,
true. I don't think Dilla was around Tribe at that
well,
point,
well,
but the influence you can definitely hear.
I'm not gonna say who told me, but somebody told me that Tip already had the tapes, and maybe
Ooh.
he already heard of Dilla, and maybe that gave him some of the vibes that he
Yeah.
brought into because the
Hey.
drum patterns changed. The drum patterns changed a lot
Yeah.
from Midnight
Yep.
Marauders to Low End Theory. The drums had a
Right.
swing to it that
Right.
we haven't heard in East Coast New York hip hop. And that swing is only in a few different artists. And those few artists that Dilla worked with earlier before Slum Village are A Tribe Called Quest. You can find that same swing
Yeah.
in the Far Side and
Yeah.
then Slum Village.
Yeah.
And then it's all Dilla after that. You see what
Right.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
No, the
I
influence
mean,
was
I
there
mean,
for
I
sure.
mean, it's a coincidence. And then to go in, the only other person close to having that swing again, and I'm gonna say this because of my knowledge of hip hop is again, another extension of Tribe, Busta Rhymes. Who produced him? Dilla. You see what I'm saying? Then you
Mm-hmm.
look at Knots has a similar swing, but Knots was in the circumference of Dilla at the time, and they were working kind of together.
Yeah.
And you could also say DJ Scratch, but all of those guys were in like the same huddle. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
working with the same 6 degrees of separation. So
Right.
that album to me is the turning point in the way that drums and drum patterns sounded for hip hop. It made like a more soulful palatable for hip hop. It was the
Yeah.
alternative to the and this is no disrespect to Mobb Deep, but it was the alternative to where Havoc went with his drums.
Mm-hmm.
Havoc drums are more traditional boom bap, with the crazy Chris snare that clap,
Mm-hmm.
clap, you know what I
Right.
mean? But Midnight Marauders is about the deeper grooves, the bass line, and the swing, where
Yeah.
the kick is in the background and the swing is in the front.
Yeah.
So it's just a great album to vibe to front to back.
Definitely. Definitely a great album. Speaking of great albums, want to get into your newest album. A lot to talk about here. Antithesis, correct? I said
Yeah,
that right?
or
And
antithesis, antithesis, however
yes.
however you want to
It,
pronounce it. Yeah,
but it's volume one, part three. So
correct.
tell us about this because there's other people involved. There's 3 volumes of this project. Tell us about all that.
Okay, so Project Antithesis or Antithesis is a creative project of Georgie Speakman and Phil Lewis. It's a project that's not quite classical, but rooted in classical music. So they're actual real compositions. Georgie reached out to me last week, and I didn't know she was like masterminding this whole shit. But she hit me up like a while ago, asking me how to get in contact with Blunt One because she heard our record Machine Gun Rap and she loved it. So now she hits up Blunt One and you get volume two, whereas Georgie and Phil Lewis, and now they layering the hip hop sounds on it, which is all instrumental again, but it's Blunt One adding the vibe. So it's a constant build up. Then she hits me up like, yeah, we did this project with Blunt One. Now we want you on it to add the lyrics. And then I'm the final component to the creative project. And I added the lyrics, and to be honest, the lyrics came from her giving me a template of what each composition was about. So I took that information and then I formed lyrics around those concepts loosely, but in the narrative of an up and coming rapper who's, going through his life, trying to get out of the street life, trying to change. And, there's a sense of family there, wanting to be a provider, a little bit of looking back, but it's just an up and coming MC
Yeah.
navigating the terrain. And it came through her giving me like an example of what each composition meant to her. And I just can't say enough about how her organization helped me as a writer um, put that together. So that was real cool.
So Georgie was the original musician that kind of made the piano, the
Absolutely, George.
original
Yeah,
vibes.
yes,
Okay.
Georgie and Phil Lewis. Yes,
Georgie and Phil Lewis. So
yeah,
it was mostly piano, wasn't it?
yes, they made the piano compositions.
So they
Yes,
made a piano composition or
right,
compositions. Then they reach out to Blunt One.
right.
He throws the drums on it. Did he chop it all? Like, did he chop it up, or was it
Um,
mostly just putting drums on top of what they played?
he added texture. I want to say he might have chopped some things up and did
Okay.
some other things. Blunt One is a very creative producer.
Yeah.
Shouts out to Blunt One for people who don't know. He's a like the King of Lo-Fi from all the way
Dope.
from Budapest, Hungary, and
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
dope.
yeah,
Didn't know
yeah. I
that.
mean, I've been knowing Blunt One for years because we released a earlier project of Blunt One and a rapper who goes by Peeps the Prophet, and it was an EP that we put out called "Ills of the Earth." It was one of our first releases on Don't Sleep Records, and the EP did extremely well, and then Blunt One kind of took off from there. He went his direction and started releasing solo albums and instrumentals and exploded.
Rightfully so.
Yeah,
He's dope. He's really dope.
thank you. That's
If
what's
it's
up.
okay with you, I'd like to just play a snippet.
Sure, sure. Do
Okay,
your thing.
this is the first joint on the album called Spring. Everyone hear that? Right. So there's the piano.
I've been going through some changes. Hustle all winter, in the spring we copping ranges. Locked in the studio for months with my anger. Just Hennessy and blunts, my therapist think I'm in danger. I've been going through some changes. Hustle all winter, in the spring we copping ranges. Locked in the studio for months with my anger. Just Hennessy and blunts, my therapist think I'm in danger.
So I wanted to play that because it kind of gives you a snapshot of what you were talking about. It has the piano. Then it has, those drums, those ill drums come in, the lo-fi. Then it has you come in, rapping on top, the three dimensions. Really well done, just really laid
Oh,
out. And what I love about this album is the texture throughout. Like
yes,
it flows really well. It has that feeling that just kind of soft, but kind of rainy fall weather feeling, and it just feels good
yes.
throughout.
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you. The one of the things that I tried to do with those songs where they were extremely short. So I
yeah,
tried to have marathon sessions where I would just finish 3 songs in a day,
yeah,
or do 2 songs at a time, so that I can keep the same energy and vibe, and it kind of connects
yeah,
with one another. So it's
right.
not like I'm up here and
Mm-hmm.
really high on energy and then I go really low. I was wanting to keep people on like a nice level vibe throughout. So I did those in marathon sessions and
Yeah.
knocked it out. I think it was a total of 3 or 4 sessions to get the 9 tracks done. And I was finished. And Blunt One and Georgie took care of the rest. They did everything else.
You talked about the song links. I was gonna ask you about that. Was that like, did you have any say in that, or was it basically like, here's the music, this is what you have to work with now?
It was it
Put your
was
magic on it.
it was what I had to work with. I think from a business perspective, it was smart. It was
Mm-hmm.
long enough to be a song, but not long enough to be overwhelming. And in Georgie's interpretation, she wanted to keep people engaged and be able to listen to the entire project
Yes.
without skipping. So the whole idea was to make sure that people got the full and complete vision and
Yes.
thought. And what we're noticing is that is what's happening. People get through every record and listen to
Mm-hmm.
it in its entirety. So it was beneficial from a business standpoint, as well as when you think about being a creative and wanting people to get your full thought. It was beneficial in that regard as well. That we were able to translate exactly what I was thinking, and people are able to just consume that and walk away feeling however they felt after they listened to it.
Man, I love that because I really love albums. There can be a dope song here, a dope song there. And some people, that's how they consume music, just one dope song after another, playlist of different artists. But I really like to hear an album that feels good, has a consistent vibe throughout. And in this day and age, I mean, you talked about the brilliance of it being short. I think it really was brilliant because, in this day and age, a lot of people don't sit with albums like they used to, because they're
No,
so long. But you can sit with this album. You can put it on, you can play it. It's consumable, and you can enjoy it. In one listen. So I think that really was smart.
Thank you. There's a term that I came up with for those albums, dating back from Illmatic, and that was one blunt records. You know what I mean? So from rolling, lighting, and smoking, you don't want that blunt to be going and your record is still on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And because and if you really go into a scientific um analysis of that, the average commute in America is about 25 minutes each
right.
way. And so you have roughly 50 minutes. Anything longer than that, people, you're lost. So I think that albums that are between 20 minutes and 40 minutes are really good and they're really successful. When you look at Bandana, one favorite albums for 2019, it was under 40 minutes, I believe. And I think the runtime was about 38 or 39 minutes.
Yeah,
Perfect length, not too long, not
right.
too short. The brevity of the songs didn't matter. It was the energy and
Hmm.
being able to complete the thought and hear this entire vision.
Right.
And that's important that we make albums. And if the attention span is shorter, let's just make sure the albums and still get a solid point across.
Yeah, yeah, you did that well on this album. So
Thank you.
you're an MC, of course, but you're also a part of Don't Sleep Records, and not just a part of it. I think you founded it, right, with
Uh,
Phonics, or was that
yes, I'm a co-founder of the
co-founder?
label.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yeah.
Finance and I created the label in 2014, and that was along with the help of Mason Strail, and the original team that was a part of the formation of that was myself, Phonics, Mason, Deflo, and Tiff the Gift. That was the core of the artist. And then we branched out to begin working with Anti Lily, Peeps the
Hmm.
Prophet, MC Boom Bap. They came a little bit later, but
So,
those are the tentacles of the projects that we have released on the label.
so taking off your MC hat, putting on your label hat, when you release an album, are there different like goals that you have, different things you want to see the album achieve?
Um, Onyx and I never go into a venture of creating an album with pure expectations. Because, and he taught me that actually. I trusted his words when we did our first record, Return to the Golden Era, way back in 2013. And, just listen, going back, if I can revisit the things that we talked about in messages back and forth or just on the phone, he would say, well, let's just put it out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Let's put it, pay what you want. We want more people to hear it than we want people to buy it. And
Right.
from my experience of just being in the underground for a while, I had made money off music, but that wasn't important as notoriety and having the art disseminate further. So that album was the first album that I had that really just caught fire because of the way and the business model that he had
Hmm.
came up with by saying, forget it, let people pay what they want. People
Yeah.
ended up paying anyway,
Yeah.
and that album has gone on to do what it's done. And I mean, $50 investment, just putting the album on the distribution platform and doing Bandcamp and everything all these
Hmm.
years later, that one thing took us this far. So, we don't have expectations. We just want the music to live and people to enjoy it and have some critical acclaim so that we can work and do another record, that
Yeah.
people enjoy.
Yeah. Right on. And as you just keep going, opportunities open up, as you go, as you just keep on the grind.
Yeah,
And one of those
yeah.
opportunities I'd love for you to speak on is this Netflix documentary, Underdogs.
Yeah.
You met a guy named Teo in Canada. Is that right?
Okay, so
Tell us about that, please.
legend has it that Teo actually met Mason in Alaska. So Mason, again, he was the guy that helped us get going with Don't Sleep Records. He was like our manager, and
Hmm.
he helped us set up a lot of the way things look, you know, the way he was also our photographer. He took a lot of those dope photos that you see of us from earlier in time. So Mason had met Teo, they talk, and they're young. They started talking about music, and he's like, hey, these are my guys, you know, A1 and Phonics, you should check them out. And Teo was amazed. He heard it, he loved it, and he's like, I want to meet these guys, you know. I'm not sure if he was aware of us already and just didn't make the and connect the dots of who we are, because that happens a lot. This was pre Shazam, you know, where you can Shazam a song and you know people know who it is. So this was pre that. So I don't think he connected the dots. So he arranged for us to meet. We met in New York. We hung out at VA. Mason came along, and we were originally just doing a short documentary for our album Knowledge Itself. And by the time Teo got back to France and looked at the footage, he was like, nah, we're gonna do a full movie. He was like, this is too good. He really enjoyed it that much. He believed in it that much. And he said, well, the only way that we complete it is now if you guys come over here, because I've been to America twice. So he was like, you guys need to come to Europe. So I proposed, well, if we come over there, we have to recoup somehow, plane tickets, stuff. Let's do some shows. So Teo went, and he went from being the guy making the film to being our promoter, like our booking agent, and he found shows. And I mean, not just any shows, like they were like really, really crazy shows, like in the right buildings. And his eye for where we should be performing at really helped to make us see the type of venues and the type of promoters and businesses that we should be working with in Europe. You know, our first show was in this space called La Manufacture 111. Shouts out to my man Guy, because he still brings us out to Europe to this day. But Manufacture 111 was an art gallery, cafe, and then they had this theater space. And I mean, to perform in a space that's a gallery, for one, and it's geared towards hip hop and urban art. So having these, and when we performed, it was just like heaven. It was the Martha Cooper exhibit. You familiar with Martha Cooper? So it was like, she's a hip hop photographer. She had done some very famous photos of early b-boys and New York City culture. You know, she has a coffee table book called We Be Girls, and it's like all the b-girl culture. But anyway, Martha Cooper was showing when we were doing our show, so it was like the perfect vibe for what we were doing, because people can check out the exhibit and they come into the room, see a dope hip hop show. It just was like heaven. The second show, Teo found this like speakeasy in Annecy, France, and it was like, you know, it was a club and it's like really dark, and you go down the stairs, but then you get in there, it's like beautiful and luxurious, like something out of the 1920s. You know, they had pictures of like Al Capone on the wall and everything. And then on the stage, they had this like beautiful Chesterfield sofa that was cut off in half like a Chase Lounge, and gold and everything. And the owner was mad as hell because I was like standing on the couch like Rick James, like when we were performing, because I guess they thought that our music was gonna be like mellow, but performing it is different. Kids can kind of crazy, so it ended up being like a live show. Like we performed in Defecation at this time, so yeah, we were standing on the sofa and everything. It was wild, but Teo just knew what to do, and that's how Underdogs was formed. That experience of him saying, "Hey, I came to America. You guys come over here." And then he brought us to his crib in Grenoble, and that's where we ended at. And his family was in the crowd, his friends, and it was like performing for family. And I remember after that show, just spending time in his living room, you know, with his mom and his friends, and just kind of kicking it and chilling out. And I knew the vibe was just so warm. It was a life-changing experience, just filming with Teo, creating that. So it was really authentic, man. It was just
That's dope.
a miraculous thing that happened, and it was all from trusting them young cats, man. You
Yeah.
know, because I was grown, you know, like fully grown, like I was in my early 30s at that time, and Tia was like 18, 19 years old. You know,
Yeah.
everybody's looking at me like, "You trust this cat?" You know, like, "You trusting these kids?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, they good." I'm like, he's coming all the way to America. Then he showed up and he's got
Yeah.
these big cameras. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, and I'm like, told you they were serious, you know, because I believe Mason. Mason had lied to me, told me he was 19 and he's managing us. He was like 17 at that time. But I said that this kid, you know, I saw the ambition, and Miles Davis stayed alive and kept reinventing himself through, you know, having youthful people around him. So I always, you know, never knocked the youth and kind of just like, yo, you want to work? Let's work. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't really have success with my peers, like that, you know, because you know, egos come into play at times, and not only that, people you can't teach an old dog new tricks. They got their
Right.
way, you know. But with younger people, they are willing to compromise a bit more,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you know, I really trust their advice, and I trusted them even with phonics. You know, he's like um my younger brother's age, but what I'm thinking, he's thinking. And you know, if he's thinking something, I'm thinking it. And it just really, really worked. And I, you know, reinvent through those cats. And that's how I got that second win. And that's how we did underdogs. You
That's
know.
dope.
Thank
That's
you.
dope. In the chat, Neville said, "Dope." It translates through the movie. It was heartfelt, and
Yeah,
I
that's what's up.
remember one scene where you talked about how like it changed your perspective. You were like in France, and
Yes.
I know traveling can really do that to you. So I know that the actual experience was very meaningful for you. Did it translate after that? Like the having that documentary, did that open up some new doors, or more people check out your music, things of
Oh
that nature?
man, it's definitely different now. Like
Yeah,
I tell you that, yeah, things are just way better, and it's just been on the constant um incline throughout the years. But
yeah,
after the documentary, that really helped a lot, you know. But we were already on this incline from just doing the film festivals, just having it kind of circulating out. Shows actually got bigger last summer when we did Hip Hop Camp, and that was before the documentary. We did Hip
mm,
Hop Camp, and this time when Guy brought us out to Paris, like for a show, it was a festival, and we were the headline and act on his open air weekend. And it was like 1,000 people out there for us
oh
for
wow,
underground hip hop.
that's
But
dope.
yeah, but France is like, you know, I would say the second largest consumer of hip hop in the world. When you think of Europe, they really embraced the culture in France. So hip hop really translates well over there, even though the language is different.
Mm,
It's like it's really ingrained in the culture. I feel the same about Germany. You know, we haven't been to Asia yet. I would love to go to Japan and see what the scene is, because that's where I got my start in Japan. But you know, the documentary really helped. If COVID-19 didn't occur, we had some really dope shows lined up that we would have been on beginning April 2nd, but we had to cancel our tour due to the pandemic.
yeah,
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 we gotta actually had a booking agent, and you know, doing things in a more conventional way. Shouts out to Karen with Sabotage at that, but you know, they were looking out for us, and it's just, you know, in hindsight, you can't complain about what you can't change, so it's all good. But
right,
you know, I feel like we're blessed that underdogs
yeah,
is what I think is an authentic representation of who we are as people. And you know, I'm the same cat on the mic that I'm the same is in real life. You know what I mean? And I just always it's easier. You know what I'm saying? Some
right.
cats are always in character, and then when you meet them, it's kind of awkward. Like you're nothing like what I expected you to be. And you know what I'm saying? When people meet me, like, oh man, you're exactly what I thought you'd be like.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, you talked about people in France, Germany, really respecting the music and the culture. One of the things that we do a lot at Everybody's Hip Hop label that's sponsoring this Boom Bap Chat is we really try to talk about the music and create, keep the conversation going, not just with new music, but, like with Tribe's music. And so we try to keep it going like that. So one of the things we do here is we do a segment called One Word. So I'll flash an album cover in front of the screen, say the title, and you just tell me the first word that comes to your mind. All right?
Okay.
Got it?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Got you.
Cool. You got to play a little, classic music to get us in the mood. So, okay, here's the first one. Black on Both Sides by Mos Def.
Umi Says. Oh, well, it's one word, but Umi.
Okay.
It's my favorite record off that.
Death Certificate. It's Death Certificate by Ice Cube. Sorry about the glare.
West Side.
It Was Written by Nas.
Message.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah,
that's dope.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
How about this one right here? Dilla Donuts.
Whew. Randy's, and I'm gonna tell you why. They got the best donuts in LA, out in Inglewood. Randy's.
Dude, is it something about, like, I remember being in Long Beach and there was like a donut shop like on every corner. They're really coming from the Midwest. Like, I don't.
They really big on donuts, man. I had the best donuts in my life in LA, man. Like,
that's dope.
They really big on donuts, for real.
All right. The infamous Mobb Deep.
Classic.
Oh, yes. Enter the Wu-Tang.
Perfect,
man. That's it. That's actually an interesting response, because when I think of this album, I don't think Perfect. I mean, I love this album. It's actually one of my top 10 favorite albums. But I just think like raw, almost like disorganized in a way. And that's, part of what I love about it. So Perfect is just, it's surprising. It's a surprising response.
The reason I say that is because you could put that album on at even a party and people are going to jump up and down until the very last song. Like, so that means that it's perfect. It's very rare in life that you get those records that in that time period, we got a lot of those records that you could listen to beginning and end. And I don't know about you. I came from the house party ages of where somebody put on the album and ain't nobody getting up, changing the CD player. And it's just, you going to listen to that album. That album, Doggy Style, Ready to Die, were those type of albums that we loved when we were coming up. And they came out like back to back to back to back. You could just rock them and the parties would keep going. It would be years before we got another album that was that strong with as many singles that people can jam to and enjoy. And that would be 50 Cent. That would be 50 Cent. And that was what, 2003? That was because he had like 6 singles on that album. I mean that, and it was a long album, but front to back, you could listen to that album up and down. It had nothing but jams. And that album right there, even it being raw, disorganized, they jams. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah, like this Clan in the front. You know what I mean? Shame on the, come on, like RZA was a beast, man. Like,
he was.
Yeah, he knew how to do it, and I tell you, that comes from him having to start in the 80s and 88. That's when Prince Rakim made his debut, 88, 89. And you think about the way music was, you had to have those jams. If people couldn't do a dance to it or move to it, it was a no-go. So you think about De La's first album, 3 Feet High and Rising, they had jams. It's lyrically packed and it has depth to it, but it was one of those albums you could just throw on and people just could vibe. And I feel that way about that album. It's perfect, man.
Perfect. I love it. All right. 2 more. Reasonable Doubt, Jay-Z.
Drugs.
Drugs. A lot of drug talk on that album. Right here, Mad Villainy.
Go.
Go. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have a high esteem for MF Doom as a
Yes.
lyricist?
Yes, I do, for the wittiness, for the
Mhm.
cleverness. He was ahead of his time. That album, even though it's '04, it's fresh today. It's timeless, and it's futuristic, even with it sounding old. Like, it's something about Doom's approach to making music, and especially when he's making music with Madlib. Madlib has that way of introducing you to old music that sounds new because you've never heard it.
Yeah.
You've never heard it, and then you have to go on this like super long hunt and argue with people about what the sample is, and find out that that's not the version that he sampled.
Right.
And
Yeah.
like he you know in that album, especially with the mask and the patina and the photograph, it's just so futuristic.
Yeah.
And till this day, the reason why I love Doom is because he never broke character. So now we just expect that that's who he is.
Yeah.
It would be
Right.
very awkward and weird for him to take that mask off now. It'd be like seeing your dad naked. Like, no, just put the mask back on. What is wrong with you,
Right.
dude? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's strange in that way that it worked. And from a business point of view, imagine if Ghostface never took off his mask. He was MF Doom.
Right.
Imagine
Yeah.
if Ghost kept character. He has a crazy stature in hip hop now. He's, I mean, his career couldn't have gone better. But
Right.
just imagine what he would have had a toy, actual action figures and merchandising 10 years to 15 years before, we even thought of having that type of revenue stream in the hip hop music.
Right. Yeah.
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt he sure was.
Yeah.
Sure was. All right. At this point, I want to open it up. I know Neville had a question about starting out in Japan. He had a question about that. And if anyone else has a question, just, get my attention somehow. Raise your hand or jump up and down. But yeah, go ahead, Neville. You're unmuted. I think you had a question.
Yeah, Awon, I was just wondering, you said it before that you'd started out in Japan, I think, and I was a little confused with that.
Okay, so way back in like 06, 07, when I was on MySpace, an A&R from a label in Japan had reached out to me. The label was Goon Tracks. So I had like 4 tracks from my debut album on my MySpace page. And this A&R was like, yo, we want to release your music. Can you send, what would be a project? So I sent them my demo and they loved it. They wanted it as an album. And here's the funny thing about that backstory. And this was produced by my crew, the Soul Students, mainly by my bro, Chameleon Beats. What's funny about that album is after we get the deal, the studio was robbed, the hard drive was taken. So the album was really my demo. It's no different. It's no glaring mix. It was just like the MP3 files of those tracks, and they were just kind of mixed a little bit. But those were the raw tracks with no real mix. And that was my debut album, Beautiful Loser. That's why I don't perform it, because we don't have the acapellas or the instrumentals. We only have like 2 acapellas and 2 instrumentals, or maybe 3 off of the whole album. And that's the story of it. So that's how I got my start in Japan with Goon Tracks. Yeah, so
that's crazy.
Yeah, they put out my demo. They put out my demo.
As your album. That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Neville. And I think we have a question from Steven Palermo. Steven, I think you have to unmute your mic. I'm trying to unmute it. There you go. All right. What's up, Steven? I thought we had a question. Steven, can you hear us? Maybe He's having mic troubles. Oh well.
It's all good.
If you get that figured out, it says you're unmuted. So if you figure that out, Steve, are you there, Steven? I thought I heard him. Okay. Cool. If he gets that figured out, we'll jump back to him. But anyone else have any questions or thoughts?
Yeah, what's the underground the Netflix? I'm clueless. What is that?
Okay, so it's a documentary film called Underdogs that we filmed over the course of 3 years with a director by the name of Teo Frank. It's out on Netflix now. You can check it out. It just chronicles our early journey of creating the album and touring and just getting those experiences, a little bit of our backstory as a crew. It's also on redbull.com. If you don't have the Netflix, you can stream it directly online for free. So if you go to redbull.tv, they have a bunch of documentaries and films up there because Red Bull is also a media house. So you can definitely check that joint out there. It's called Underdogs.
Word.
Yeah.
That's
It's dope.
up.
It's inspiring. It's really inspiring. Hey, my man Bo Brown had to jump off A1, but he said, great conversation. Got to jump off here. Much love and continued success to you. So
Word. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. No doubt. Any other thoughts or questions before we officially end it? What's that?
Why it's just AWON?
Oh, you might have missed that earlier. It's AW, those are my first initials. So we wanted to incorporate my real name into the actual name. So we chose that spelling. I found out later that it's like actual saying in Nigerian and in Korean. So we had to do a lot of work on Google to get me to come up with that spelling. But that's how it happened. My cousin gave me the name and decided to use my first and last name initials as the beginning because it made sense.
Okay.
That's dope. And Steven's back on. Steven, can you hear us now? Maybe not. Oh, I think he might be there. Can you hear us, Steven? Can you say something? All right. We still can't hear you, Steven, but if you want to type your question in the chat, you can do that.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
Yep.
Antoine, I just wanted to know, when I'm listening to the lyrics from the first few albums I listen to, I hear like a spirituality and a depth in there. Is there a certain type of, I don't know, religion, faith, or does that make sense? Like, I don't know what your vibe is, but I definitely felt it in it.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of that comes from my grandmothers. On one side, I was raised Seventh-day Adventist on my mom's side. And on my dad's side, my grandma is Pentecostal, I believe. I believe that's what it is. But they kept me in church, and my mom's mom, rest in peace. She always told me that I should be a preacher when I was younger. So I that took a hold of me. But also, I was born in Brooklyn, and I lived in Fort Greene, which we called ahead of Medina, and that was
more churches per capita than anywhere else in the world, right?
Yeah. But in Brooklyn, period, like in the neighborhood, that was where Clarence the 13X founded the Nation of Gods and Earths, right in my neighborhood at Fort Greene Park. So, my uncles were a part of that, and giving me jewels as I was coming up, and knowledge of self, and just that way of life. So it all kind of came to a head, and as an adult, I don't really have a specific religion that I tie to, but I definitely believe in a higher power. I believe in God and spirituality, and I do follow, the mathematics and study having knowledge of self, and study also mindfulness and things of that nature. Just to work on being a better human being every day. I think that, us living on earth, we should all know that, we should attach ourselves to being something greater than ourselves. You know what I mean? And so that's my drive every day, just to evolve naturally as a human. So that's why it's a lot of spirituality and depth in the lyrics, because I want people to walk away inspired. I want to contribute to some positivity, even though we talking a lot of street shit, a lot of things that people might take as negative. I always think that there's a greater message in what I'm actually trying to say, and that message is, look, you don't have to live this way. You could be better than this. And my message is, the pain that I felt losing my friends, losing loved ones. The message is that, there's a prison industrial complex that exists in America. The message is to always evade that negativity, because love and positivity will always supersede negativity. You know what I mean? It's about optimism. That's my message. It's about, the glass is half full. It's always what you make it. Because in my own life, I feel like I survived and I made it, and just took my situation and kind of changed it. The situation for me could have been much different had I been consumed with the chip on my shoulder of, well, we came up out of the project. So, well, there was no options. Or, well, those are excuses at the end of the day. When you have a skill set and you apply yourself, it's about having the confidence to have that ambition. So I think that, just giving that type of message to people in general is, fulfilling. You know what I mean? It's only going to be but so many. I'm gonna murder you. I'm gonna kill your kids. I'm gonna do all of it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
we've been there before. And I think that it's always time for a new conversation, especially in hip hop. Hip hop is so inviting that it gives us the opportunity to expose people to different sides of us, and that vulnerability and authenticity is what I try to showcase in every record. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Nice.
dope.
Well said. Thanks.
Yeah, it's dope. All right, we have time for one more question. If anyone has a last thought or question, well, we got Awon on here. If not, that's all right. Yep. All right, go ahead, Ian. What's up, Ian?
Hey, Awon.
Yo.
Through the creative process with the new album of One, what's something interesting that you might want to give the fans that we might not know about?
Oh, okay. That's a great question. I recorded all of those records at night, really late at night, in the middle of the night, actually, like between 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. So nothing was done during the day at all on that album. So maybe when you listen to it, you hear it at night and it might come to you a little bit differently. If you knew I was in my home studio just recording like super late at night, like, yeah. So that's how I got that off.
That's dope. Yeah, if you've not heard the album out there, if you can find a nice dark place at nighttime, like he said, or on the outside on a cool crisp night on the balcony or on a porch or in a park or something, put on the headphones. It's just a real nice feel, and you can listen to the whole thing a few times and you can still be back, within an hour. So it's a really dope album. If you've not got it, make sure you go out and get it. It's on all streaming platforms. Is it on your Bandcamp, or is this one not on your Bandcamp?
No, this is not. I didn't have control of that aspect of the distribution process. The label viewed it as, let's just make it available for streaming digital now, and just leave it at that, because when you go to Bandcamp, people expect the physical to happen, period. Like, with Bandcamp, I don't know of anything just being up there digitally, even though I might try that. But, we look at that as a place for hard goods, and the streaming world is for everything else. So, we were aware that it was going to happen. The release date, it came out not long ago. So we were already full steam into this. So we know, kind of derailed things a little bit.
Well, anybody out there checking this out, if you have not heard that album, Antithesis Volume 1, Part 3, it's a phenomenal project. You can also check out his earlier work or Don't Sleep Records. His albums with Phonics are great boom bap hip hop with soul and jazziness all mixed in. And your joint that you did, Solar Power, last year was one of our favorite albums of the year last year. Phenomenal
wow.
album.
Fire.
So
Yeah, thank you.
yes,
Appreciate that.
yes.
Thank
Fire.
you for including me in the book, man.
Of course, man.
Yeah.
course.
That album was a lot because I was recording it during the process of my wife being pregnant and you know, expecting another child, and you know that changed my whole world. You know what I mean? And so shouts out to my wife, Tiff the Gift. She's also in Underdogs. You can check out our journey, you know, and see how everybody clowns me about the irony of sleeping. You know, we may label Don't Sleep Records, but I love to get my sleep when I can.
Well, speaking of that, we're going to let you go and let you get your sleep tonight. But we really appreciate you being here. Thank you for coming tonight and sharing yourself and stories with us. We really appreciate it. All of you out there, if you do not know his music, go Google it, find it, buy it, support it, because it's really dope. And everyone else in here, thanks for coming to the Zoom. Really appreciate it. We'll be back next week. We have a really special artist, our guest next week. His name is Jay Brookins. He's done some phenomenal work in Indianapolis. He's done beat battles up there that are just phenomenal. He's done some just great work in the hip hop scene. So we're gonna be talking to him. So I invite you all to come back, same link, next Thursday at 10 p.m. So that'll do it for us tonight. Thanks everyone for being here. Really appreciate it. To the live world, we're about to sign off. And then everyone in Zoom, you can just hang out for a bit. We can chop it up and I can tell you why Black Thought is the greatest MC of all time. So we can get to A1, any parting words, A1, that you want to say to folks?
Yo, yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you all for jumping in, being so cool and inviting. You know, appreciate the hospitality, man. This was dope. I enjoyed it. So thank you again.
Thank you, everyone, man. Keep up the good work, brother. Can't wait for the next stuff to drop.
Will do.